afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, dear friends. It's rather late afternoon at this moment. We Finns, we are waiting for our southern night at this time on Saturday afternoon. My topic, however, today is a bit different from the ordinary questions of historical research. I think it's much closer to human soul, mentalities, the grey zones of known and unknown, or something we don't even know what to ask for. Some of you could even think that studying witchcraft is also dangerous. But don't worry, I have my bodyguards always with me, or at least the spirits. The theme of my presentation is magic, witchcraft, and witch trials in Europe. Of course, in one presentation, it's not possible to touch everything or all kind of phenomena related to this issue. However, more information can be found, for example, from this book edited by one of my colleagues and I a year ago. Also, there are a lot of works mentioned and listed in my homepage if more information is needed. These, though, are so far only in Finnish. Actually, witch hunts at early modern Europe, and early modern Europe, I mean 1450, 1750, that's approximately something. Witch hunts or witch persecution or witch trials are among the most bizarre phenomena of European history. Some studies explain that even 9 billion women were sentenced to death because of their witchcraft. This is nonsense. We know that during the 300 years period, 1450, 1750, which is the time of witch panic, some 200,000 people, or slightly more, were accused of witchcraft or magic. Although we don't know exactly the numbers, of course, not exactly. Neither are the number of death sentences known exactly, but we know, and it is known by historical research, that the number of deaths were possibly somewhere between 20,000 or 60,000. And it's good to say at this point at once that it's nothing compared, for example, to panics, persecutions of whatever the reasons were for persecutions of the 20th century, which saw the biggest persecution in history known to historians. Most scholars consider this 20,000 all too low number of death sentences, because it's only in some countries. Well, we know that the death sentences were rather severe. People were executed for reasons which modern-day observers consider nonsense, groundless, or something what we can't really understand. Persecutions cover most countries in Europe. Most countries in Europe, from the British Isles to Russia, from Italy and Spain to the shore of Arctic Ocean, somewhere in Vardø in Norway were some of the biggest panics, rather close to Murmansk. In history books, scholars often call this phenomenon witch hunt or witch persecution, thus emphasizing the panics, the atrocities, and the terror of witch trials. The witch was an enemy of a society, or that was what people was thinking. The popular image is that witches were burned at the stake. Mostly they were. However, in most cases, if not in all countries, the lawful procedure was that the convicted witch should first be killed by sword or by an axe or by hanging like in Great Britain or England at that time. Only then the body was burned at the stake. That was the lawful procedure according to law. There were many exceptions from this rule, of course, as people, frenzy of hate, took the law to their own hands and did whatever they wished. The mercy was not given, lynchings without fair trials were frequent almost everywhere. From many books, even from some notable encyclopedias, we still read that witch trials took place in the Middle Ages. You know, that dark Middle Ages. In the times before modern science and in the time before the Enlightenment period in Europe. That was not the case. That was not the case. That it was not the phenomenon from the Middle Ages. Most panics, the worst panics, occurred after the Middle Ages. At the beginning of early modern times, 1450, 1750. This is a difficult conundrum for historians and for scientists. The worst panics actually take place in the time when Galileo Galilei lived. It was the era when the modern Western sciences developed fast and with big steps. It's also good to remember that this man mentioned here, the Isaac Newton, the great scientist of the time, wrote more about magic and alchemy than about the issues what we do as our groundwork for modern science. That's quite interesting. But yes, let's start from the beginning. And I hope that my interpreters, if anyone is using these headphones, I can't see, but they possibly can follow my thinking also in sync. I just wanted to be sure about that. This is a receipt of an executioner, you know, the official who was responsible for executing all kinds of corporal punishments and the death sentences. The principle of good governance has always, and indeed always, in all countries with good administration, being that all expenses and costs have to be checked by an accountant, independent from the person involved, or the person in question. It was a standard procedure of accountability. So the state, the crown, needing to receipts, kept them safe, and therefore historians have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different kinds of documents, almost everything, and for about which trials as well. So that is something what we do, we historians. It's nice to read how much it costs to kill a person or something. Actually, historians with high standards of source criticism, you possibly have heard something about this idea, they are not inventing or fabricating facts, like sometimes politicians or ideologists do. We are trying to find out what really happened, even though sometimes we don't like what we can find, what we find out, or something. And of course, not everything can be known. Sometimes historians themselves well, they just don't like what they see, what they find out, or what they have to tell. Yet there is one phrase in Finnish folk tradition saying that accepting the facts is the beginning of wisdom, and I follow this idea today. Broadly speaking, there are three kinds of magic and witchcraft when speaking about the European case, Russia included. Malevolent magic, doing harm by black magic or witchcraft, is one of the oldest crimes in human history. It's already known from the Code of Hammurabi some 1,700 years before Christ or before the Common Era. European witch trials did not begin because the laws against this kind of magic was enacted. Harmful magic had already then been a crime for thousands of years. Harmful magic is an ages-old custom and belief. It's an ages-old crime as well. So that's actually was not the reason for witch trials or witch bans. Then this white magic, it's a historian's term, it's not very good. It's benevolent magic was something. The other kind of magic, healing, making some good or bringing good luck, it's also a thousands of years old custom among all human cultures and civilizations. Yet originally it was not a crime, as no one could think that bringing good or good luck, health, and that kind of things could be something wrong. Benevolent magic include many kind of various magical tricks, procedures, incantations, charms, and so forth. That's very bad magic. That's all right for me. And so on. Usually, some kind of paraphernalia or equipment were also important. People used cloths or bears, which I mentioned here in Russia, for example, or ointment cooked from herbs, fat, animal body parts, bones, or even urine. As in harmful magic, some techniques of benevolent magic are known universally worldwide. The procedures are same, they are universal. That's among the first global issues in human culture, like dancing, for example. And we know that criminalization of white benevolent magic was an important factor causing great witch bans, but not the original reason for it. As the Christian churches became stronger and stronger, the clergy, the priests, the ministers of the church started to find all kinds of pagan beliefs, as they said, all kinds of folk traditions and what the unlearned people, as they say, what the people used to do. The church explained that every trick that was not according to the teaching of the church, was not from the service in church, or that was not according to what the priest, the clergy taught, that was something wrong, because all kinds of magic, harmful as well as benevolent magic, was powered by the powers of demons. So they connected this good luck, doing healing, benevolent magic, they connected it to the devil, to the wrong religions. However, we need to remember, it's actually very important to remember, that healing by natural means was never considered a crime. I mean, well, of course it's a bit difficult issue. What was natural means then? That was a drawing in the water. Yet herbs, ointments, natural ingredients, and so on were allowed to use if no unconventional methods like incantations were used at the same time. Of course, this was a really difficult problem. The problem was also, or even more difficult, because people couldn't make difference between prayers, proper prayers, and incantations or charms. That was a very difficult line and very complicated religious. Well, that was was not the reason for witch bannings, witch persecution in Europe. It was a bit different. The third one, the most popular witch image, at least in the Western Europe and western part of Russia, is a woman flying the witch's Sabbath. This was part of the stereotype of a witch that developed after the Middle Ages. Yeah, again, after the Middle Ages. In the time when our new modern sciences were developing, when we got more and more scientists to work, this idea of flying women originates from the same time, from that period. That's really fun, I think. The idea of flying women, that's really something. Sorry for this advertisement, I usually use these three aeroplanes. You know, of course, this one is thin air, so it's too big. Well, this is the earliest picture, I mean, this one woman there is the earliest picture of flying female witch known to me. It's from 1440s, somewhere. Indeed, witches were thought to be able to fly physically, in reality, not only in their dreams. And where did they fly? They flew to witch's Sabbath, a secret place where the devil organized cannibalistic feasts and orgies. Witches were having a good party with the devil. That was how it was explained. Really strange, I know it sounds really strange. In these parties they renounced their Christian religion, became allies of the devil, and so forth. And they were rewarded by him with all kind of luxuries and happiness. So, according to the clergy, the ministers and priests, possibly the happiness was a rather short period only because Christian religion explained that the eternal happiness cannot be provided by the devil. Very shortly, the stereotype of diabolical witchcraft, and mostly female witches known to practice it, well, not known, but I mean supposed, I'm sure no one could fly, and no one cannot fly, that's for sure, at least for me. It doesn't fly, it shows it can. So, but the stereotype is as follows. Is it alright if I don't read all these texts? The translators, interpreters will read it and I have a short break because according to Finnish working laws I need, well, we need in Finland and Sweden, they are very strict laws, I need some breaks every now and then. Even our pop singers, they have 45 minutes show and then they have 15 minutes break according to law. So just follow it. Plus four. Try to give me some kind of sign or mark when you have read the page, so I can follow. Well, I hope to go ahead. Historians call this type of witchcraft diabolical witchcraft because of all this, which is most serious crimes were apostasy and blasphemy. Apostasy, renouncing the Christian God and his religion. Blasphemy because of their rituals with the devil in the witch's Sabbath. The people who were found guilty of these crimes were sentenced to death according to the law of God. And you know the law of God did not recognize anything but death sentences. There were no fines in the law of God, which is quite interesting from the legal point. The idea that our soul can depart us when we are asleep, in a sleep or in a state of unconsciousness, that idea has been again a worldwide belief almost a global belief still today. And please remember, today there are more witches in the world than ever before. Because the only Europeans do not believe any kind of witches, or most of them possibly do not believe. However, during the Middle Ages, the church has taught people that the belief that you fly, even that your soul is flying somewhere during the night, that's a superstition of silly old women. That was what the church explained during the Middle Ages. For example, the famous code of canon episcopi of the church, Catholic Church. So we see how the scientists, how the priests, how the clergy, how the theologians, they all changed their minds in this issue. And they changed their mind in the time when our Western modern sciences were developed. So it must be very scientific modern new idea. And that it was. Starting from the 15th century, some mid-1400, it became more and more common to the clergy to think that the devil could do that kind of tricks with his allies. The church thought that the end of the world was approaching, and therefore the final fight between good and evil, God good and bad, God and devil, is about to begin. That was the reason why so many witches appeared in the world, according to the teachings. The devil created new armies for his side, the famous fifth column, what we have heard even later, almost every century after that. There has always been secret armies against us. Whether it's true or not, that's your question. I possibly would like to tell you a bit about one book, Malleus Maleficarum in Latin. It's also translated into Russian the first time, according to my knowledge, 1930s, some 70 years ago or 80 years ago. It's based on the famous book that originates from the 1486 or 87, 1486 or 1487. That was one rather important book, and what we now know better than people then knew the book. I just mentioned this book because this is very famous, but this actually is not the origin of this diabolical witchcraft. It's just very famous, it's just very good because modern people like to read that kind of stories about witches. So all our publishers have published it, as I told you, even in Russian, and of course in Finnish. But the Russian edition came 80 years earlier than Finnish edition, which came to Europe. I didn't translate it, it was one of my friends. Well, it's interesting to know that the Bible does not mention anything about this kind of witches. Witches do not fly in the Bible. There is no witches Sabbath in the Bible. And yet everything was justified by the word of the Bible. That's a really big contradiction, I think. And all this kind of contradictions, even in modern world, they are only possible because people just don't know. People didn't know in the Bible there were that kind of witches. Witches didn't fly in the Bible, but people didn't know. Everything could be explained, everything could be said, because no one knew. That's the thing. But in the Bible, nothing of the kind of witches, this kind of witches, nothing. Well, the diabolical witchcraft, it was a new kind of belief, a noble idea. It was also of new pride, as nothing of the kind was known before. That's quite interesting to me. However, I have to mention you that it was never unanimously accepted. Most of German bishops, for example, was against the theory, but it didn't happen. So it was very popular thing at the time. Also, it's worth knowing, or emphasizing even, that this kind of witchcraft, I mean this diabolical witchcraft, it was known only in Europe and in her Christian colonies. That's really interesting. Well, then a couple of words about the firm legal system and the importance of legal system, the way how witch trials got their origin. The first interesting thing is that the worst panics took place in the regions where people, mostly women, were accused of this kind of diabolical witchcraft. The reason was that when someone was accused of lying to witch's Sabbath, she or he was expected to be able to report other people who also were there, because witch's Sabbath was a very big part. And indeed, the accused could report whoever he or she wanted, for whatever reason. Sometimes investigators wanted to hear certain names, and when tortured, the victims usually mentioned names that was what. That was really simple. It was a vicious game. Even those who opposed the new theory, the new diabolical witchcraft theory, could be suspected to be witches. And that was really a wizard circle. The second interesting thing is that most accusations of diabolical witchcraft took place in the areas of modern-day Germany or other German-speaking areas like Switzerland. Hold on, I explained why, and the explanation is entirely different what you expect to hear. It has nothing to do with Adolf Hitler or anything of the kind. Most death sentences for diabolical witchcraft were seen in these areas, and almost all worst panics were in German areas. Why? That is an important question. First, I have to say that it's important to notice that the legal system at the early modern period in Europe, the time of witch hunts, was usually quite fair in most countries. The proceedings should follow the law, accusation had to be proven or confessed to, independent and reliable witnesses were needed, and so on. Sadly, as nowadays, in those countries where the legal system is firm and fair. Almost all witch trials were a matter of secular court, controlled by professional judges and investigators. And when the accusations concerned traditional harmful witchcraft or benevolent magic or superstitions, not the accusations of diabolical witchcraft, at least half of the accused were always acquitted. Sometimes 90% or 100%. So most were always acquitted. However, that was not the case about the trials of diabolical witchcraft. And the German case teaches us one fundamental thing about witch panics, and possibly all other persecutions and panics in history and politics as well. And now I give the explanation. Very often the pressure to accuse someone of witchcraft came from one important individual or from a group of ordinary people, the common people. Sometimes people were afraid of someone or hated someone and therefore wanted to get rid of him or her. In the other classes, political motives were also used to cast a suspicion against the competitor. That's normal. And when you think What do you think? What factual basis you have when you say that someone there in the front line, some woman of the Olga, for example, last night killed the witch's son? What kind of factual basis you have to prove this kind of accusation? Nothing, of course. Had the law courts followed the ordinary procedures, the demands of full evidence, as was the legal practice even then, any individuals would not have been convicted for visiting the witch's son or flying there. That's clear. Unfortunately, in some regions, the legal system was unfair, even criminal as such, or collapsed entirely time after time. There is one rule to explain all this. In the regions where lower courts were supervised and controlled by independent upper courts, the courts of appeal and the like, so witch panics were rarely exploded, or there were no witch panics or mass trials at all. Did you get this, my eyes? On the other hand, in the areas with dozens of independent law courts without higher independent appeal courts controlling them, witch panics got their perk easily and spread to other areas without firm legal system. And the reason was that the members of lower courts got easily involved with the local panics. Often they were part of it or tried to use the legal system. I mean, the member very important person, for example, they tried to use the legal system for their own interest. On the other hand, upper courts or courts of appeal with members independent from the locals, they could stay calm and decide according to law. Many times the higher courts punished the wrongdoers, even judges who had made unlawful decisions and allowed injustice. That interesting rule, and it's very firm concerning the witch trial. And now the key to understand the German case. Germany, no, well, the problem was there were no Germany at that time. It was the German Empire, officially something like the Holy Roman Empire, the Roman Empire number 2 after the first Roman Empire, rather silly idea as such. However, the empire consisted of hundreds of fully or rather independent principalities, led by bishops or members of high nobility. There were 3 cities and the like, some bigger, some smaller. Nominally, everything was controlled by the empire, the emperor, nominally. But these principalities, free states, they were practically free. And their legal courts were rarely controlled by any independent powers. Or they didn't even have any legal courts. So that made it possible for anyone to take the law into their own hands and decide whatever they wished. As the law courts were rarely controlled by independent higher courts or appeal or any independent institution. And this fact explains why in German areas the witch trials were more terrible than in most other regions. That was the point. Hundreds of law courts, controlled only by 1 or 2 or more or less honest individual members of aristocracy or the clergy, they could decide whatever they wanted and whatever came into their mind, whatever was the reason, whatever was the motivation. There was no one single motivation. There were hundreds of different people involved in the case. Of course, almost everywhere some sort of panic sometimes emerged. Yet when talking about the big trend, the German case illuminates the dynamics of witch hunts. Or possibly all other panics, persecutions in history. But I don't touch this issue further, it's too complicated. This fact, however, emphasizes the importance of fair and firm legal system based only on law, and which is also beyond of all possible pressure from the ruling families and from the clergy. And now we can understand, to cause a terrible witch panic, you needed a new witchcraft theory. Theory of lying witches having good parties with the devil. And you needed to break up the fair legal system if you had it. And now a word about the case of Russia. Although there were trials against traditional harmful witchcraft and benevolent magic, also in Russia, hundreds of that kind of trials, the idea of diabolical witchcraft was never familiar in the areas of Russian Empire, and there is a very simple reason for that. The most important and very simple reason was that the Eastern Orthodox churches did not accept any ideas from the Western churches. And the diabolical witchcraft theory came from the Western churches. So you decided that must be something nonsense, as it was. Therefore, Russia was saved from the worst witch panic as per any other regions and countries without the reception of the idea of diabolical witchcraft. And in Finland, for example, only the Swedish-speaking Western Finland knew something about this modern witchcraft theories. Others couldn't imagine anything of the kind. It was very divided in Finland, as Finland still is very divided in these kind of things. Well, a couple of words about who were the witches, what kind of people they were. And again, I think I have to... What I'm going to say is entirely different what you are expected to hear from me. But I assure you that it's a work of dozens of scholars, and we really knew something nowadays about witch styles and witches. People usually think that if someone is persecuted, he or she must be somehow different. Being different is the reason why those who do not think themselves to be different do not like those who they think are different. I'm quite sure this is very clear sentiment, but possibly you got the idea. It's again easy to see that this kind of pattern works very well in the modern world. It was there. Yet the point is that witches were not different, entirely contradicting what is believed so far up until the 1970s or 1980s or 1990s, when we got dozens of new studies about the issue. Of course, they were different. They were different among them in the sense that we all are somehow different and in many other ways similar. But first of all, you couldn't recognize a witch from the appearance, from the religion or ethnicity. He or she was as any other of us. Not even this famous stereotype of red-haired women, it doesn't work. So, there would have been also typical Russian blondinka. So that's not true. We can establish some general features about unsuitable thinking and wrong research ending up wrong results. Yet they were not part of witch trials. The answer to the question of who were witches, well, I assure you, be surprised. That's so it is. Historians know that witches were not all women. There were men as well, especially in Russia, in Finland, in Estonia, in northwest France, in some areas in southern, southeastern, southwestern Germany, and so forth. There were men and women. There nowhere all which is young or old, poor or rich. The problem was actually called, even for historians at the beginning, because we struggled to find any explanations for this. Most of the accused were ordinary town and village people, just as their accusers were. They were accused of causing harm by witchcraft, killing a cow, sending illnesses, and even killing other persons by witchcraft. The motives of the act were almost all disputes, always disputes, quarrels, clashes, and so forth. People quarreled with each other over the economic issues, borders of the field, debt, theft, hunting rights, and so on and so on. This was the most typical background for accusations, but that was not everything. The point was that in some regions, the judges and the investigators relied on diabolical witchcraft theories. If someone was accused of killing the neighbor's cow or horse, for example, the officials knew from the diabolical theories what to do. And of course, they were very modern, they were educated, they learned the new theories, they were very trendy. They knew what to do if there is a rumor or something done by witchcraft. This is my 13th slides, and of course when having a talk of magic and witchcraft and superstition, the number of slides is 13, so this is the last one. But this is what followed, because the official knew what to do when someone was accused by his or her neighbors. They knew that it should also be investigated whether the accused person visited witches' Sabbath as well. As the theory said, that was explained in the theory. So they wanted to be very modern, they wanted to be very good officials, they wanted to do their work very good. So they caused the whole witch panic. They knew that it should also be investigated whether the accused person visited witches' Sabbath. And that was actually the problem. In this way, ages-old folk traditions turned into terrible witch panics, terrible witchcraft, diabolical witchcraft, heresy. And this explains two things. How the ordinary disputes between village people and the town people, the city people, how these ordinary disputes turn into a very serious heresy, very serious matter, even to witch panics. This also explains why the accused people were just ordinary people having just normal everyday life and everyday worries and disputes. Therefore, a witch as a stereotype was an easy target. Anyone could be a witch. That was the point. Unlike religious differences that could not be recognized by unlike religious dispute differences, very tumultuous era of European after Reformations and that kind of things, ending not earlier than 1750 or something, witches could not be recognized by religious practices or from the ethnic issues, based on differences in your appearances or background. Witches could not be recognized in any way, because they were not living. And ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my point of view, when we think that some people are persecuted because they are different, that might not be the case, and that wasn't the case when we were studying the witches and witchcraft. Possibly one cannot explain persecutions by the doings of the people who are persecuted. One needs to look inside one's own mind and one's own soul to find the reason. Possibly, this is good. I'm not commenting. I'm not going into further details of this. But the witch in European history was a scapegoat for all bad things. People needed someone to blame for all miseries, setbacks, for their unhappiness, and a witch was an easy target. Everyone could agree that witches are to blame for basically everything. Yet everyone could be a witch. The road to the stake was paved, and it was very easy and sometimes very fast road. The chaos was ignited, but not a single problem was solved. You transferred or you projected your bad feelings onto innocent people. Mostly the innocent people got some satisfaction, but did not get any better. And I think this is one of the most important messages from the history of witch trials, from the history of witch persecution. But on the other hand, the 20th century and this early 21st century have somehow, taught, at least to me, that we have not been able to learn from the history. Thank you. That's my point today. And of course, if you wish, I'm ready to hear your comments, listen what you are going to say. But unfortunately, I studied Russian language for 3 years without not great success. So I better someone like translate it into Finnish, Swedish, or English. Yeah, please go ahead. Both of you is difficult.
What is the reason for witches being disproportionately women and the persecutors being mostly men? Is it because of misogyny of Christianity or maybe the society at the time?
Well, thanks. It's a very simple question. They were not all women. Only when we were talking about this flying witch, the witches Sabbath. These witches were mostly female persons. For reasons, basically, could you please to do something? I don't like this dark vignette. So it's only the diabolical witchcraft. That was the area of theory where most women were always majority of the accused. Yes. And of course, the clergy explained that women were, this is politically very incorrect way to, I have to think about it. I mean, it so happened, according to the clergy and the theologians, that women like the sex with the devil more than men. But that's a difficult explanation as well, because we know that devil could change his gender. So basically, men would also have visited witches. But when we are talking about harmful witchcraft and benevolent magic, we can't find clear patterns. There were men and women in almost everywhere in Europe. Only this diabolic, this flying witches, that's an interesting story. Why women can fly better than men? So that's possibly the reason why we invented aeroplane. So I think possibly there is this kind of many kind of weaker sex and that kind of theory, but we don't really know. And the mythology is different. We know, for example, in the Roman Empire there was this bird called Strix. Strix, it was a spirit. He took the soul of a woman to fly with her around the skies during the night time. But that flying was nothing about to do with the physical flight. It was it was just enforced, their souls were flying. And then came this modern Western scientist who decided that they could fly in reality. Sorry, I can't give you any better. Ask the women around you. The next one. There are rather many. Yes, please.
So we know that witchcraft can be of different form. As you mentioned, Stalinism was also forward into this witchcraft. But this particular, it's about magic, about flying. So for a certain reason, we didn't accuse people in Stalinism for flying. So maybe science was booming and we were more elaborate in accusing people. But why was it in the 15th century, 40s, when it started? Was it and then booming through the 16th century? Was it connected with the reform in the church as well, and also fighting potential opposition, including paganism into that, bringing these astral bodies as the manifestation of paganism? So it's a very interesting philosophy which took pieces of different religions and took into one form. But was it connected with the reform of the church and also absorbing the power of the Catholic Church?
Well, thank you, Olga. I knew that you would put an extremely difficult question. The point is, actually, I have to explain the situation in research at the moment. Up until the 1980s, historians thought that everything happened in the Middle Ages. Historians thought that there were millions of women sentenced to death. Historians thought all kinds of images, for example, that they all were women. But then this new phase of witchcraft historiography, researchers doing the work nowadays, we turn that everything upside down. That all was just a mythology. Actually, there never was witch persecution in that sense, what we believed earlier. You know, there were possibly a bit more than 200,000 accused persons for witchcraft and magic during the 300 years period. It's nothing. In Sweden, I was about to say something about Sweden, but I changed my mind. In most crimes in Europe, more people were sentenced to death. Religious wars, starting from the 1500 something, up until the 17th, mid-17th, 18th century, more people were killed. The only conundrum, the only difficult question is what she asked. About it related to this theory. Why on earth this theory appeared? Why on earth there came women related to this kind of witchcraft? And now I tell you a very, very bad news. We don't know. Because the old way historians understood the phenomenon, nothing was true. Very shortly, if you wish to have something, this book I published with my colleague. So here is the new, why it is challenging the paradigm. It somehow combines the old thinking in this field. There are very famous scholars, Ronald Hutton and so on, writing in this book. And of course, the situation in research, everything has turned upside down. All questions are new for us. And I'm very sorry. That's, of course, somehow I undermine my whole work, or the whole professional historians. But frankly, I have to say that no, we don't know. There are some theories but without taking into account that everything has changed in the late 20th century. So it means that we really have a lot of work to do. Yes, please go ahead. I try to find you. But your name was actually my hearing, not the.
Maybe my question is quite silly.
I hope so. Then I can answer.
Was there a common punishment for anybody who was believed to be a witch, or it was changing in
No.
time?
That wasn't too silly question. That's a bit complicated. Yes and no. Because actually the point was, it depends on whether we follow the legal procedure, what the law said. Even that time we had a law, we had a legal procedure, we have principles of fair justice legal system. If we follow that ideas, there could be fines, there could be acquittals, not everyone was convicted, and it was really different. But when we step aside from the legal procedures, everything could happen. And yes, according to law, most typical punishment was fines. I mean, you had to pay, like nowadays when you drive too fast or so forth, you need to pay something. The fine could be very severe, very big. Let's say that it's something like BMW 5 or something, or at least the price of a horse. That was the biggest fine. Most people without money, the fines were changed into corporal punishment, which was severe and could cause a death, even though it was not meant to cause a death. So it varies. But remember, traditional harmful witchcraft, traditional benevolent magic, mostly people were quit. Well, benevolent magic was a bit different thing, because people did try to use magic. So the witnesses told that he did that kind of thing. So he was fired. But yes, is that the answer? Oh, it was. Right.
How linked Давайте. Как связано представление о магии и ведьмах с эпохой Ренессанса?
Era of what? Yes, there's one nice thing. Thank you for the question. Now I can say something good things from the people studying art, history, and that kind of things. Renaissance Italy had very few witch hangings. There were, of course, panics, or not really panics, it was very early phase. And in Italy there were witch trials, but considering the whole European level, Italy in the 14th and 15th century, there were very few witch hangings. So that's, and it is explained because of these ideas of Renaissance, humanities, and that kind of things. But now I have to tell you that yes, there were some panics, and even some first witch trials were in Italy. Is that any good as an answer? Yes? And no, please go ahead.
So at what point and why did did witchcraft like stop being persecuted by that, for example?
I see. Well, in Finland, you mean death sentences? Officially, in the end of 18th century, in most countries, laws changed, and it became unlawful to sentence any witch to death. But in Switzerland, for example, they could do that in 1700, can't remember, 1780s or 1790s. In Poland, they could kill witches, but there were not lawful killings. The law had changed, but people followed the old customs. I think in Poland the last sentence was something 1790 or something. I can't remember the details, there are millions of details, sorry this. But yes, basically the 18th century saw a change and declining of witch trials step by step. But in Hungary, for example, in Poland, for example, in Russia, for example, and in one place in Sweden, there were rather huge panics around 1750. So it's very late process. In Finland, actually, well, I say
What might persecution be like since that sense which is more because laws changed in that sense religious, but I mean no one's just started liking witches
no, yes, of course. Well, it depends. In Finland, actually, for example, the professional work of any magician was prohibited up until the 1980s. For example, fortune tellers, the law said that you can't do that without encountering heavy fines. But of course, we did not follow the law. And that's one thing I need to, yes, good point to remind me. Of course, actually, there never was law against flying to witches' stuff. That law was never enacted. There was never law explaining that you can't have parties with the dead. The witch trials began without these kind of laws, and they ended without changing these kind of laws. Don't ask why. I don't know. No one knows. We have theories, but there are so many theories, I don't know which one to say. Yes? Steal something? Right.
Thank you. Let me ask about the witch children. I don't mean sons, especially daughters. What about them?
It's part of this legal procedure. Yes, daughter. Yes, that of course. It's possibly interesting to know that in Western Europe during the Middle Ages, a free man, a free woman could not be tortured. It was against law in the Middle Ages. It's an entirely different thing when it was a political process. Politicians acted each other. Even popes acted each other and tortured each other and churches. So that's, but according to law, no free man could be tortured during the Middle Ages. But then, of course, during the witch trials, well, again, this thing, when following the legal practice, torture was actually restricted. You had to make protocols, minutes about how it was, what she or he said under torture. It was controlled, if it was allowed at all. But the problem was that in the worst panics, torture was used in a way that was entirely inhuman. And it was something that is, for historians at least, it's really difficult to explain how we could do that kind of things against some others, our brothers and sisters. That's a really difficult question. But torture in this diabolical witchcraft, it was a really important thing. For example, when someone, I don't want to say who, but I mean someone of them, of course, woman, due to which is Sabbath, we could ask that who else were there? And if she is my enemy, I said that possibly she was, wasn't she? Oh, of course she was. So that was the problem, really. I hope this is